Hello, Southern California, and welcome to this week's edition of Right on the Money with Tom Mosley. He is the founder and president of Mosley Wealth Management based right here in Southern California, and I'm your host, Kristin Oakley. Each week, Tom and I are committed to providing you with retirement planning solutions, and today we have a very interesting subject we're going to be talking about. It's all about your home. Should you own your home in retirement? Should you look at renting? Or should you, like so many others, look at moving outside of Southern California? That's what we're going to be talking about today. So Tom, my friend, always a joy to see you. I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
I'm excited about this conversation because it's the conversation that I have with so many couples and so many individuals who come in, they get on our schedule, they come in, they talk to us, and we've got like 4 or 5 pages of questions that we go through. And the very first page, up toward the top of that page is the question, is this the last home you'll ever live in? And that opens up a whole wealth of things that we talk about. And to show you, I've been in business for 29 years, and I've never marketed outside of the state of California. And I have clients in 23 states across the country. That means that they started with me in Southern California, and they had to change their doctor, they had to change their church, they had to change their post office, but they haven't changed their advisor, whether they're in Minnesota or Idaho or Tennessee or Florida or North Carolina or wherever they are. They are still my clients. We can communicate by Zoom and by phone, but people have moved from Southern California. And that's what we're going to talk about in the last section. But before we get there, we've got to say, if you stay in California, do you rent? Or the second section, do you buy? What are the advantages maybe of renting?
Right. Well, and it's interesting because this whole episode was birthed out of an inspiration from an article. And we actually did this show on one of our radio shows, and you got such a huge response of folks calling in. It's really resonating with people. So we wanted to bring it to the television show as well. But this article came out of the Wall Street Journal, and the title was, "There's Never Been a Worse Time to Buy Instead of Rent." Talk about what that article was focusing on and how that applies to our conversation today.
Well, you and I both read that article, and deeper in that article, it's 52% more expensive to buy right now than it is just to rent a house. And that's because the interest rates have skyrocketed with the inflation that we've had from the stimulus packages and the spending that the government has done. Inflation is always caused by too much spending and too few of goods to buy. And if there's too much money out there, there's always going to be inflation. That's historically true. And, politicians are denying it and putting it on other reasons right now, but we've just spent too much money. We've spent too much money, had too few goods. If you think back to COVID and how prices skyrocketed during COVID, and you tried to get toilet paper and you couldn't get toilet paper, but those of us in Southern California, if you went down to the coast to take a walk, you saw 82 ships out there waiting to dock in Long Beach to let off their goods. So there was too much money chasing too few goods. Inflation came, drove up the price of everything. And so therefore, to stop inflation, the federal government raised the interest rates. Killed the home buying market. I've got probably 14 employees now. I've probably got 8 of them that are under 35 years of age. And those people were so close to buying a home before COVID and before the inflation rate drove up the interest rates. And every one of them now are telling me, they say, Tom, yes, because one of my goals as an owner of the company is to have my people able to buy a house, my younger people. It's a thrill to me. I've got 5 kids of my own, and it's a thrill to me when one of my employees is able to buy a house. I finally had one a couple of months ago, and I'm so excited for Diana, okay, because she and Junior were able to buy a house, and so I'm excited about that. But inflation rates have gone up, and they've driven up the price of money, and so now a normal mortgage, instead of 2% like it was 4 years ago, is now 6.5%. And that just destroys the ability for younger people, particularly, to buy a house. What about for people in retirement? I cannot believe how many people are coming in to see us, Kristin. And when we ask them about the home, they say, we don't have a home. We've got $1.5 million saved for retirement. Just had a couple that were in my office, and they've been with me for about 5 years. They've got $3.8 million saved for retirement, very solid for retirement, and they don't own a home. They're still renting. What would be the advantage of that? Well, the advantage of that, number one, would be the mortgage rate that you're having to pay right now because you're through the roof. That was this article from the Wall Street Journal that said it's 52% more expensive to buy a house with the interest rates where they are right now than it is to rent a house. Now, I like owning a house, don't get me wrong, but in this section, I'm talking about some of the advantages of renting rather than buying. And if things are sky high, and interest rates are sky high, and even a teenager can figure out that now's not the time to run and buy a house in most cases.
Well, and to your point, a lot of folks focus on the mortgage payment, right? So you have the principal and the interest, but there's also some other costs associated with owning a home. You have your taxes, you have the homeowner's insurance, and then what a lot of people don't realize, it's not just those costs, it's the other costs, repairs, upkeep, maintenance, improvements. I mean, there's a lot that goes into owning a home that isn't necessarily shown up front with the cost of just the mortgage.
Right. Now, it's built into the rent price, but if you get on the big websites for houses right now, you'll find that to buy a house, like I looked up my house recently. To buy my house, the payment would be $9,200 a month.
Wow.
To rent my house would be $5,200 a month. So that's the article.
Yeah.
Because baked into that rent price, yeah, you've got property taxes, but if you own the house, you have to pay them. If you rent the house, there aren't any property tax. If you rent the house, when something major goes wrong, you call the owner, you call the company that's doing that. The repairs are on somebody else, not you. And if you buy a house and you don't buy a brand new house, my house is 40 years old, and a couple of years ago, we had to repipe because we had a broken pipe, and the repipe, we repiped it through the ceiling rather than through the floor because it was less expensive to go through the ceiling. So expenses. When you're renting, you don't have those expenses.
Right.
So those are things to consider, and you don't build up a lot. Here's another thing. If you're renting, most of what you have as savings, or a lot of what you have, a big chunk of what you have, let's say it that way, in savings is built into equity in your home. Well, if you need to tap that equity, you've got to go through the process of getting a home equity line of credit or something like that to tap that. Whereas like this client of ours that have $3.8 million, they don't have any equity in a home. Bad thing? Maybe, but their money's not tied up into a home. If they went out and outright bought a $1 million home, they would go down to $2.8 million. I know nobody's feeling sorry for them, okay? But they would have that $1 million would be tied up in their home. And to tap it, you'd have to get a home equity line of credit or maybe do a reverse mortgage, and all of those things are expensive. So bottom line in this segment, renting may not be a bad idea. And you say, well, we eventually want to buy. Well, save your money. Here's my recommendation. Save your money. Wait till they begin to lower the interest rates and the home interest rates go down. Keep your powder dry. In other words, be ready to fire when the interest rates gets low enough that it's feasible to go buy a house rather than rent the house that it is right now.
And that makes a really convincing argument why for some people it could be right for them to be renting right now. And so again, every one of these situations, it's going to be different based on your individual situation. We have to talk in generalities on this show because we don't know what your individual situation is. But if you would like to get some of these questions answered for yourself and your situation, this is why Tom and the team of Mosley Wealth Management would love to offer you your complimentary retirement blueprint. Now, to claim yours, what you need to do is call that number on the bottom of your your screen, 866-709-1462, and schedule your time to come in, meet with one of the all-star advisors of Mosley Wealth Management, and they will build that complimentary retirement blueprint for you. Or if you'd like to connect online, simply take out your smartphone, and if you open up that camera app, you can point, click, and scan that QR code that you see there down in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. That will take you over to a landing page, ask you a few short, simple questions, and then a member of the team from Mosley Wealth Management will reach out to connect with you to schedule your complimentary meeting that way as well. We've discussed about renting. When we come back, Tom is going to share maybe some of the pros and cons of going ahead and buying or owning your home, I should say, continuing to own your home in this season of your life. Stay with us to find out what he has to say.
As a good saver, you've been putting away money during your working years. Studies find that the biggest fear of retirees is running out of money. Market volatility isn't just the downward movement of stock prices, it's the size and frequency of change. The more dramatic the ups and downs, the higher the volatility. This can put savers who are newly retired or a few years away from being retired at greater risk. Today's generation of retirees is not receiving traditional pensions as our parents or grandparents did. Instead, we have retirement accounts such as 401ks or 403bs. These accounts typically expose your money to market risk. The last thing you want right before retirement is to lose a portion of the money you need for income. But how do you turn these accounts into a retirement income? Is it safe to keep all your retirement money sitting in the stock market? The last thing you want is to lose a portion of the money you need for income due to market loss. By working with a financial professional, you can learn how to turn a portion of your savings into an income stream for life and income for the life of your spouse if you're married. We all have moments in our lives when we wish we had taken action sooner. Don't let procrastination reign on your retirement parade. Act now before it's too late. Please call our office to set up your no-cost, no-obligation retirement income review today.
Welcome back to Right on the Money with Tom Mosley. He is the founder and president of Mosley Wealth Management based right here in Southern California, and I'm your host, Kristin Oakley. We have a really fascinating discussion today all about what to do with your home in retirement. Should you be renting? Should you continue to own your home? Or should you look at maybe possibly moving away from Southern California? And in this segment, we're going to be talking all about the positive ramifications and the challenges that come with continuing to own your own home. So let's talk about that, because I know I've heard you say this a lot, that some of the happiest people and the most contented people you've ever met in retirement are those who have a home, they have the home paid off. Now, not everyone has their home paid off when they enter retirement, so there's lots of positives, but there's some challenges too. So let's talk about specifically that group of people who are currently owning their own home.
The people who own their own home, there's such a contentment. There's such a peace of mind. I think the older you get, the more you want to control things in your life, and you don't want those variables and the ups and downs. And let's go back to the first segment of renting. If you rent, the negative about renting is you don't control what you pay, and it escalates. If you have a 30-year mortgage, it's flat. And if you got the 30-year mortgage at the beginning of the 30-year mortgage and you had that price of $3,000, $3,500 a month that you were paying, as inflation took place and as income rose during that time, and you were bringing in more money, that $3,500 a month really became less and less of an impact on what you were making. So it became less of a dent into what you were doing. And then when you get it paid off, it's like running you still have hurdles each month when you have expenses in retirement, even if you have the house paid off. But I call it running the low hurdles. And if you don't have your house paid off, I call it running the high hurdles. Now, if you've ever seen the low hurdles run, man, they just step right over those things. I mean, it's boom. It's almost like a race unencumbered. But if you see the high hurdles, it's almost like you slow down, stop, leap over it. I'd have to run around, but you'd have to leap over it to go over that hurdle. And that's the way it is when you have your mortgage every single month. But once you get that mortgage paid off, there's such a peace. There's such a contentment to the people that I have in my clientele who have their home paid off and they own their own home or they've got it almost paid off. I mean, if you have a $1.2 million house or an $800,000 house and you owe $125,000 on it, congratulations. I mean, you've got the animal is killed. It's just a matter of just waiting it out and just paying it out. And if you've refied at a low interest rate, there's such an advantage to that. You can control it. And that thing you need to have repaired, and the renter, the guy who rents you the house or the service who rents the house to you, they won't repair it. You can go repair it yourself. You can go fix it. You can go change the bathroom. You can go remodel the kitchen. You've got the tax deduction. You've got the neighborhood that you know you're going to live in, because here's one thing about renters. They move around because when rent continues to escalate, you know, they get you in and they think, well, you're in as a renter, so you're going to be there. You're going to be there because you don't want to move, but you have to move because they raise the rent so much. I know I've got kids who are renting. And so that idea of home ownership, there's so much security that's there. You have the tax deduction, you have the mortgage deduction, up to $10,000. There's so many things, Kristin, that just bring peace of mind to people because they own their own home and they have their castle. They have the place that they feel like. And I'm telling you, I get a little cold chills right now because my wife and I raised 5 children and we've worked really hard. We had a really super low interest rate. But just last week, we found out the payoff amount and we paid off our home. Now, my wife, Susan's the kind that's always like, I don't want to do it. Why not? I don't like to turn loose of a big chunk of money like that, was her statement to me.
Right.
But I finally just said, nope, we're going to do it. We've got to do it. And we sent it in. No more interest, no more interest payments, no more monthly payments, none of that. And last week after we paid it off, I understand, not in a bragging way, but all of our friends that are really close, all of our kids, she was telling everybody, you know, God allowed us to pay off our mortgage, and we don't have that mortgage debt anymore as we're in retirement, and our hurdles are gone. We're just running the sprint every month, and we're just running that deal. So that I get it. That peace of mind, that ability to have the write-off and the taxes, and to have that equity so that we can leave it. And I know sometimes that estate planning jumps up and it creates a problem when you're leaving a house, because if you've got a house and it's the mother lode of what you're leaving 3 children, and you don't have enough to leave the other 2 children who don't want the house, one child may want the house but not be able to afford to take out a loan to pay off the other 2 children. So if you don't follow that, think through it a little bit. If one of your children gets the entire house and it's paid off, the other 2 children may go lacking, or that child may have to pay off the other 2. So there's some issues that are raised, and yeah, you got to go get the repair done, but find yourself a good repair person. I've got a guy's name if you want to come in and see us and talk to us. Seriously, I've referred this guy to a lot, and his company, he even calls his company Just Like New, because he goes in and he does repairs and he makes everything look just like new. When I had to do the repiping that I talked about earlier in the house, he came in, completely redid our ceiling just like new. Find somebody like that. You need a good auto mechanic so you don't have people rob you when you're older. You need a good person to work around your house. And this guy's built fences on the outside. He's put new siding on my house. He's built a new planter on the outside. He's done sheetrocking on the inside. He's done crown molding on. I mean, this guy can do everything. You need somebody like that. But own your own home. It will give you such a contentment and a peace of mind that you can't believe. Now, when we come back, I'm going to talk about the biggest question that I get, bigger than renting or owning, is do we keep our house in Southern California or do we move somewhere else? And I'm going to talk about some of the things that I've seen that are positives and negatives about moving, because let me tell you something, it's a financial situation. Let me explain why before we go to break. If you sell your house here, you pay a big realtor fee. You buy a house somewhere else, you pay a realtor fee. You don't like it somewhere else, or you move to follow your kids and your kids move somewhere else and you sell that house, you've got a third realtor fee. And wherever you go then, you've got another realtor fee, whether it's come back to Southern California, like a lot of people do, okay? Or you move somewhere else, you've got 4 realtor fees. We've calculated it on average, it's about a $150,000 hit to your retirement funds if you move and you make the wrong move. We're going to talk about why you should move and why you shouldn't when we come back.
No doubt a lot of folks are going to want to tune in to hear what you have to say about that, because we know that this is a question a lot of our viewers are experiencing. So again, if you have questions about anything that we're talking about today or any other aspect of your financial life, you know that you need to have a solid plan in place. This is why the invitation is for you to pick up the phone, call that number you see on the bottom of your screen to claim your very own complimentary retirement blueprint, 866-709-1462. Or again, you're also welcome to simply scan that QR code down there in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, and that will get you connected as well. We'll be back right after this.
You've got quite an extensive resume. Wow, so many years of management. Bet that was fun. So this job requires basic knowledge of the social media and video platforms, content creation, and SEO. How proficient are you in those areas?
Going back to work after retiring is not ideal. I'm Tom Mosley with Mosley Wealth Management. If you have amassed a nest egg, it's time for a financial advisor to help you reach your retirement goals. This is one of the greatest tax windows in history. Now is the time to take advantage of this tax discount while you can. We specialize in retirement planning, tax mitigation, estate planning, and much more. Plan your retirement right. Call now for your portfolio review and tax analysis.
Welcome back, Southern California. You're watching Right on the Money with Tom Mosley. I'm your host, Kristin Oakley, and as Tom teed up before the commercial break, it's time to have a conversation that he is having so often with folks when they come in and meet with him and his team. This whole question of, should I move? Should I leave Southern California? I think this is really, we're seeing a mass exodus. A lot of people are leaving California, they're moving other places, but with that, there's some pros, there's some cons, and you've seen it go both ways. So we need to talk about it.
Well, the biggest question that you need to answer if you're considering moving out of California is why? Mm-hmm. Why am I motivated to move out of California? And some of the answers that I've heard, well, we're moving out of California because our kids live in Texas. Our kids have moved to Tennessee. I recently, just a couple of weeks ago, had a couple moving to Tennessee because 2 of their 3 children had moved to Tennessee. Very valid reason. I have also run into situations, and let me stop and say this. Renting, buying in California or buying elsewhere, all of those are personal decisions. Mm-hmm. That they are also, though, in something you really need to realize, they are financial decisions. And sometimes there's a financial reason for you to need to move somewhere else because you can live a lot of other places. This is one reason for a why to move somewhere else. You can live a lot of other places with a lower cost of living. Okay, let's settle that. That's true. That's hands down. I was just in Kansas a couple of weeks ago, and gasoline is in the lower $3 a gallon. I come back and I fill my truck up with gas, and it's $4.50 a gallon. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the gas tax, it causes things to be higher here. When you buy other things here, particularly housing. The rest of the world is catching up, but you can buy housing with acreage and all kinds of stuff other places for the same price that you're buying here in Southern California. You can buy 5 times as much. One guy moved to Kansas City one time a few years ago. That was my client. He sold his business and his house here. He put away $1.5 million and bought a bigger house and a bigger business in Kansas City. Okay, I get it. The cost of living is lower, but are you moving, and it's a financial decision, are you moving because of the cost of living? Well, let's check out something. I own property that I've inherited because my dad passed away and left me property in Texas. And a lot of people say, well, I want to move to Texas. The other reason is taxes. There's no state income tax in Texas. There's no state income tax.
That's a tongue twister.
Texas. That's a tongue twister, right? Okay.
Right, and Nevada is the same, and Tennessee, right? Florida, a lot of people.
All the places that people are moving to. But Florida has an increase of 40% across the board on their homeowners insurance this year. Texas has home taxes that you pay on your real estate tax in Texas are sometimes 2.75 on the houses that I own there, 3.25% of the value of their home. There's no Proposition 13. If a state like Florida, Tennessee, or Texas has roads and bridges and schools and libraries and government, and they're providing those kind of services just like they are in Southern California, they've got to get the money somewhere. So before you say, well, the cost of living is lower there, it may be lower here, but your insurance may be higher, your taxes on real estate may be higher, because that government is getting taxed somewhere. So you need to really check it out. Some people want to move because of the weather. Okay. A lady one time told me, literally, true story. She said, I want to move to Scottsdale, Arizona. I said, why? She said, I was over there for a week and it was 79 degrees every day. And she was sitting in my office. It was around March 1st. Okay. So yeah, Scottsdale is 79 degrees every day in February, but it won't get down to 79 degrees in July and August. So, I mean, even in the coolest part of the night.
Right.
So when you move, have a real logical, thought out moving. Now, I always encourage people in retirement to have a budget, because your lumberyard is going to build a house for you to live in based on what you need for income every single year and every single month. So you move somewhere like Texas or Tennessee, you need to do a Texas budget or a Tennessee budget. And you need to work through line by line all of the ramifications of what it will cost you to move out of California into one of those states. Because it's not just apples and apples and they don't have tax there and they have tax here. They've got tax there. It's just in a different way. Might not be as much. And I've got people who, here's the deal. I've got people who move who are as happy as they can be. And I've got people who move who are as miserable as they can be. And they end up moving back to Southern California. Well, not only does the realtor love you all along the way, but you move back to Southern California after making a mistake of moving out of Southern California, particularly if you move away from your kids, your doctor, your church, your financial advisor, your friends, your social network, all those families in your neighborhood, and you move back to Southern California, you've lost all of that. So trust me, it is a huge financial hit for you to move somewhere and not like it. So you better make the right decision. I can talk you through that. Our financial planners can talk you through that, because I've helped coach them as to the pitfalls of moving out and moving out for the wrong reason. It's just part of a blueprint that we build for people to make sure that it's better for you to move than it is to stay here. Get yours.
To rent, to own, to move. So much goes into this, Tom, and I know you've seen a lot and you bring that wealth of wisdom to be able to help navigate our viewers make the best decision possible for them and their families. So thank you so much for this show today, and thank you for joining us. Again, to claim your complimentary retirement blueprint, 866-709-1462. Be safe, be happy, be blessed. We'll be back with you next time here on Right on the Money with Tom Mosley.